G'day new starters. How you going? There's an old saying, an old cliche that says, cometh the hour, cometh the man. In a more sensitive culture we might say, cometh the hour, cometh the person. But the issue that's surrounding that cliche is a reflection on the fact that great people are made so by their response to difficult circumstances. It is self-evident that through history, greatness was displayed because there was greatly difficult circumstances to respond to. People don't rise to greatness without there being an opportunity to reflect that. People are not just great. They reflect greatness. Now, there might be some people that are born to high station in life, but even those people aren't reflected upon as great until there are circumstances to prove the nobility of their character, if you like. This past week we had a cyclone hit the coast of Queensland, and it was a Category 5 cyclone with the highest type, with winds up to 300 kilometres an hour when it crossed the coast. And there was some significant fear about the damage that it would do, because in the part of Queensland where it hit, cyclones are not a regular phenomenon, and so therefore few houses are built, or certainly the older houses that are around which there are many, are not built to sustain that level of a cyclone. And so there was some great concern. But as it transpired, the cyclone didn't take the trajectory that would cause it to pass closest to the largest population centres. And in the end, by the time it did, it was a tropical low and just full of rain. There was plenty of rain, lots and lots of rain, but not the damaging winds. And so people of faith might be led to say, well, thank God, because that didn't happen. The fact, however, is that it did cross the coast in a close to a populated area, and the destruction that happened in that location was quite significant. The people there aren't praising God at all about that situation. In fact, they may very well be saying, why did God spare others and not us? And those kinds of comments and those kinds of statements about God as a controlling God that is manipulating circumstances is a fairly common way that humanity, whether people have faith or not, respond to the idea of God. If there is a God, then God is someone that is overseeing everything, controlling everything, and he lets some things happen, and sometimes he lets bad things happen to good people, and sometimes good things happen to bad people. And that seems very unjust, but he's God and he's beyond our understanding, and that's how we relate to him. A long time ago, and probably as a result of my own personal tragic circumstances, I became very frustrated with that idea of God. I read in the Bible that God is a God of love, and it seemed to me, and it seems to many people, that to say that God is love and to hold such an idea of an arbitrary and capricious God can't be sustained together. God is either love and understandable, or he is revengeful, arbitrary, and not very trustworthy. And those that hold God to be that kind of a God, doing things to people and controlling circumstances, will very often say, well, God's plan's beyond ours, and we can't really know it, so therefore you can't challenge God. And they'll even say things like, can an ant cry out to a human being and say, don't step on me? And it's that idea of the beyondness of God that enables him to escape responsibility for those circumstances. Doesn't satisfy me very much, because if there is anything true about love, it is that love is vulnerable, it is open, and it is accessible. A person that loves somebody reveals themselves to them, and in fact the gospel message is precisely that God revealed himself to us. And so what about God in these circumstances? Well, you know what, as I've journeyed down that road, I've come to the place where I don't think God really is involved in those circumstances to a great extent. Don't get me wrong, I do believe that God can be directly involved in circumstances. But the truth is that humanity has a responsibility in the world to respond to life as it is. That life unfolds, and because we live in a ever degrading universe, there is always going to be circumstances that reflect the reality of the universe in which we live in. And God would have to be constantly intervening, and some would think that he does, constantly intervening, making choices about who is protected and who's not protected. And how does God make those choices? Well, the truth is that if God allows life to unfold as it will, then he's given an opportunity to do something that doesn't come to our mind if we hold on to that idea of God being controlling every circumstance. And that is, he is able to reveal himself and his nature of love into the human heart in the middle of circumstances, in order that humanity can respond to those circumstances and reflect a transformation towards a heart of love in those circumstances. It was very interesting after the cyclone. There was a reporter talking, and he was pointing out an individual whose house had been spared, that was going through the neighborhood and helping those whose homes had been damaged. Such is the love of God. And in fact, I would say that regardless of whether that individual has faith or not, he is in fact reflecting the very nature of God in those actions, a nature of love. The only satisfying understanding for me is not that God can't be involved in circumstances. I think that he can. And not that he doesn't get involved in circumstances. I think that he does. But the truth is, in any situation, regardless of how good, bad, or indifferent it is, God's first and primary concern is to work in people's hearts and lives to make them more able to live out love. And if there was never any difficult circumstances, if God took them all away, we would never have the opportunity to live out love. Cometh the circumstance, cometh the individual. And that's the way God is at work in our lives. And every time we see love being expressed in the middle of difficult circumstances, we are seeing God. And there's the miracle. As you go out into this week ahead and you're faced by difficult circumstances, ask yourself, what is it that God might do in you in the middle of those circumstances? Not just how can he change those circumstances. Have a good week. Thanks.